lungs, and other vital organs is interrupted. It's a serious medical incident that requires immediate care. Heart specialists monitoring news coverage of Bronny's situation say it's a positive sign that he made enough improvement to be removed from the intensive care unit. Bronny was taken out of ICU a few hours after arriving at Cedars-Sinai. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis, Smiley. I'm just happy to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, check out the Tavis Smiley podcast wherever you get your podcast and listen at your leisure. We got a great show on tap for you today in our second hour. This weekend at a star-studded event inside the famed Hollywood Bowl, we will celebrate the 90th birthday of Quincy Delight Jones. Y'all love that middle name, right? Quincy Delight Jones, better known as Q to his friends, and I count myself among them. Two of the performers on stage this weekend to honor Q at the Bowl will join us in hour two. It's going to be a great hour. Patty Austin and Saida Garrett both join us today in hour 2. And then in hour 3, so if you're a music lover like I am, how lucky are we today? This program just comes together in strange and unique ways sometimes. I was telling JD, our producer, how did this happen? that we end up with Saida Garrett and Patty Austin in hour 2 and Karen White in hour 3. Karen is in town for a special performance, and we'll talk to her about that today in our final hours. So hours 2 and hours 3 will be chock full of music. And if that doesn't make you feel good and smile, I ain't got nothing else for you. So it's going to be a great show today. But we commence today's show. Speaking of a great show, it's going to be a great conversation in this first hour. We talk in this first hour about Elon Musk's latest disruptive move. He has done away with Twitter's iconic blue and white bird logo and replaced it with a minimalistic black and white X. The bird is gone, and a minimalistic black and white X is now in its place. From now on, we are told that the social media platform will simply be known as X. Facebook is now Meta. Twitter is now X. Do these attempts at transformation and branding actually work? Do they really influence our perception and our behavior? And what about the spending power specifically of black folk to change the game for product producers when they make these kinds of moves to transform their branding? Dr. Marcus Collins is author of For the Culture, The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be. I am pleased to welcome Dr. Marcus Collins to this program. Dr. Collins, good to have you on. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks so much for having me.
It's my great delight to have you. Thank you for the time, and I'm glad we have an hour to talk about this. These changes are becoming hegemonic. Every time I look up, somebody is changing a brand name to something else, and it's kind of hard to keep up these days. Before I jump too deep into the conversation, let me just start with your opening salvo, your opening comments, I should say, on what you make of this latest disruptive move, as I put it, by Elon Musk.
I think of it less as a rebrand and more as a diversion.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter has been experiencing a lot of negativity since the acquisition by Elon Musk, from the rise in hate speech on the platform, particularly against people of color, marginalized communities. And then you add on top of that the rollback of some of the features, i.e. you only be able to see so many tweets a day, then pulling back the blue check mark that meant validation, that now you could just pay for it. And then, the changing of the name. I mean, this place has not been a safe haven for people of color, and therefore the cultural engine of Twitter that we know to be Black Twitter finds new places of refuge in places like Spill. And then you have Threads launched by Meta, which takes the social, it creates the network effects that come from using all of your social connections on Instagram to come with you to Threads, creates a very, very powerful threat against Twitter. And therefore, if you don't like what's being said on the station, you change the channel. And this is what I think what Elon Musk has done. And we've seen this in politics since the rise of Donald Trump. We've seen the idea that if you don't like what people are saying, use some diversion to change the conversation. In many ways, though the ambitions of Elon Musk may be inspiring to some degree or another, being more than just a text-based app, I think that the move is really, in my mind, a sign of desperation more than anything else.
There are 4 or 5 questions that just popped into my head, given that opening comment from Dr. Marcus Collins. So when we come forward, I'm gonna delve more deeply into diversion versus rebranding, the hate that is Twitter or X these days, what we make of that, whether or not changing the name actually changes the game. We'll talk about Threads and whether or not it's a real threat. I just signed up the other day for Threads, and so I'm wondering whether he thinks it is a real threat to whatever Twitter has established. And somebody once famously asked, what's in a name? What is in a name? We'll talk about that and a great deal more as we move through this hour with Dr. Marcus Collins, that is, talking about For the Culture, the power behind what we buy, what we do, and who we want to be. It is his latest text, and we'll delve into it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Can you believe it's already back to school season? To get you ready, Chase is holding a family event at its Crenshaw Community Center branch on Wednesday, August 2nd from 4 to 8 p.m. We're giving away backpacks full of school supplies and other goodies to the first 1,000 attendees. There will be activities for the whole family, from financial health workshops to lawn games and crafts for all ages. Chase, we make your back-to-school dreams happen. J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Extreme heat can make you very sick and can be deadly. For Californians 65 and over, it's important to have a plan. Ask your healthcare provider if your medications affect your ability to cool down. Know the signs of heat illness and stroke, as well as the location of your nearest cooling center or air-conditioned space. And if you have loved ones over 65, be sure to check in on them on hot days. Learn how to stay safer from extreme heat at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
What's up, LA? The Reparationist community got something real special going down in historic Leimert Park. August 12th, 2023. This event is sponsored by Reparations United and Black Pact, fighting for justice and empowering our community. Together, we can make moves. We have an insane lineup for y'all. The sultry Rotimi, the king of LA, The Game, smooth Eric Benet, and none other than the powerful sounds of blackness. Also, we have some special guests in the house. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, State Senator Stephen Bradford, LA's beloved Councilwoman Heather Hutt, and many more. They're bringing their passion and leadership to the stage. Mark your calendars, August 12th, 2023, Leimert Park. Let's come together, support each other, and make a difference. Peace, love, and reparations benefit concert and unity rally. Be there or be left out. Produced by Tara Perry of Black Pact and Cam Howard of Reparations United.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
So Elon Musk has done away with the iconic blue and white bird logo that we have come to know Twitter as. Replaced it, in case you just tuned in, with a real minimalistic black and white X. And the platform, we are told now moving forward, will only be known as X. As I said earlier, Facebook is now Meta. And so all these companies seem to be in the business of trying to rebrand. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Marcus Collins. His book is called For the Culture, the power behind what we buy, what we do, and who we want to be. He sees this more as a diversion than a rebranding. Before I get a little deeper, tell me more about that distinction, Dr. Collins, as you see it.
Sure thing. I think it requires us first considering what exactly is a brand. Mm-hmm. Now, according to the literature, a brand is an identifiable signifier that conjures up thoughts and feelings in the minds and hearts of people with regards to a company, a product, an institution, organization, entity, or person, right? So, like, brands are vessels of meaning. Mm-hmm. And these vessels of meaning, they bring to mind cognitions and affects, thoughts and feelings about something. And even though you've changed the name from Twitter to X, the meaning of Twitter still resides in the hearts and minds of people, the Twitter that we know of today, right? So it's like, remember when JCPenney's changed their names to JCP? Mm-hmm. We're like, no, it's still JCPenney's, right? Or Radio Shack said, no, we're the Shack. No, you're Radio Shack. Or even when P. Diddy said, I'm Diddy, or I'm P. Diddy, or I'm Brother Love. Yeah. It's like, well, yeah. It's still the same.
Sure,
it's
Puff.
A different name.
Sure, Puff. Yeah.
And we love Diddy. I mean, shout out to Diddy. But it still conjures the same thoughts and feelings. So when I think about Twitter changing their name to X, I see it as a very cosmetic shift, and it has more of a significant impact on the conversation that we have about what this means as opposed to what the actual brand means today. And until the product has any material changes, until the way it's run has any material changes, until Elon Musk as the operator or the face of this thing has any substantial significant changes, Twitter is still going to mean the same thing to us, even by the name X. Even with a different logo, the meaning still stays the same.
Yep. As you were running through that list a moment ago, from J.C. Penney's to Puffy, just running that list, my mind went to something that I think is the opposite, an example of the way you can do it and the way it does work. And the irony of the example I want to offer, which won't surprise you, of course, given that this is your lane. The example I want to offer now is an example of a change that stuck, but it really came from the people up to the company, not the company down to the people. You can probably guess what I'm talking about. It's FedEx. It was Federal Express. It is. That's the name of the company, Federal Express, right? But everybody who used Federal Express started calling it FedEx. We used that name so much that the company decided to go with FedEx because that's what we were calling it. So that's an example, to my mind, at least, of one of those changes is from the bottom up, not the top down. Does that resonate with you?
I think that's a perfect example because essentially what it means is that we collectively have cooperated or contributed to the cultural construction of what this thing is. And that's the thing about brands. And I've had the fortunate pleasure of working with some of the biggest brands in the world, right? From Google to McDonald's to even Apple, Nike, and Beyoncé even, right? So work with massive brands. And what we know about brands and meaning is that we marketers, we signal intended meaning. But meaning actually resides in the minds of the interpreter. It resides in the minds of the people. We could tell people all day long that Skechers are the coolest sneaker. Look, Snoop made them too. And we go, no, thank you. Right? No matter what you're signaling, it actually resides in the hearts and minds of people. So what we do as leaders, as business leaders, as marketers, we're signaling something. Even politicians, we're signaling something in hopes that people see it the way we do, and there is congruence, as I talk about in the book. This is the process of meaning making. And think about this from like a personal perspective. Think about when Cassius Clay turned into Muhammad Ali. He didn't just change his name; he changed his rhetoric about how he saw the world. It was a material change in him that therefore we saw him through new lenses. Malcolm X, went from being
Malcolm
Detroit
Little.
Red,
Yeah, sure.
Malcolm Little to being Malcolm X, from Detroit Red to Malcolm X. Those are material changes in what he meant as a brand. The vessel of meaning associated with him was no longer what he once was. And I think that unless Twitter changes materially of what it is, not just in the veneer, then we'll always see it as what it is, which I think leads to the next part to this. That, well, what does Twitter want to be?
Let's go there. What does Twitter want to be? To the extent that any of us can get inside the head or heart of Elon Musk, good luck trying. I'll let you do that. That's not even an exercise I want to be a part of. I don't want no part of that. So you take us inside his head and heart. What does Twitter want to be? What does X now want to be?
Well, I don't blame you for that cautiousness at all.
Yeah.
But we can go off of self-reported data, right? And what Elon Musk has self-reported and what Twitter is self-reporting is that it wants to be more than just a text-based app. It wants to be sort of our version, the American version of WeChat. WeChat being the super app in China that is both a social platform, it's a financial institution, it's where commercial activity happens, like transactions, i.e. like a PayPal or an eBay. It's where we interact with companies. It's everything. It's all the apps that we can think about, from Facebook to PayPal to eBay to Venmo to all the things living in one super app. And it exists in China, and so much of China's commerce and exchange happens on WeChat. And what we know of the way that Elon Musk talks about X, what was formerly known as Twitter, is that it's going to be that. All those things. It's Substack. It's all those things together. And while those ambitions, I think, are they're worth saluting, right? They are ambitious in nature. I don't believe that the American public is ready for that kind of app because it requires a tremendous amount of trust. Trust in the giant tech corporation to do right by our information, to do right by the marketplace, and I don't think that trust really exists right now within the consideration set of major tech companies. But then it also requires trust in Elon Musk, which we don't have very much in because he's unpredictable in all the best ways possible and all the worst ways possible at that. Trust, the construct I love for trust is that trust is the mechanism that absorbs uncertainty. And when it comes to Elon Musk, there is a unbelievable amount of uncertainty. A lot of uncertainty actually goes against what we consider to be sort of the ideological cultural norms of humanity, at least here in this country. So I don't think that America's ready to trust Elon Musk with their money, or trust Elon Musk with commerce, or trust Elon Musk beyond the context in which we've already attributed trust to him. And maybe that's even eroding considering the decisions he made with Twitter over the past year.
Give me that definition of trust again. I say that this audience knows I say this all the time. I always leave this studio smarter than I came in. After 3 hours of sitting here, I'm always learning something every day, and there's always something that I take with me to marinate on the rest of the day. Sometimes it happens in hour 2, sometimes in hour 3, and sometimes it happens in the first 23 minutes of hour 1. I think it just happened. Give me that definition again of trust.
It's the mechanism that absorbs uncertainty. It absorbs the I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what, right? It's like, if my wife says I'll be there at 5:00 to pick you up, I go, she's going to be here at 5:00 because I trust her.
Yeah.
Like, she has demonstrated herself to be trustworthy, and therefore any uncertainty I might have is absorbed by these mechanisms that we call trust. And when it comes to institutions, we trust our bank that our money is going to be there when we need it. When it comes to the brands that we buy, the branded products that we buy, we trust that it's going to perform, or that if this happens to be malfunctioning, I can bring it back and get a new one, or get my money back. We have trust in these things. We trust restaurants that we eat, that what I'm ingesting isn't going to kill me, right? Like, we put this uncertainty to the side because this mechanism that absorbs it allows us to operate in the world without much cognitive dissonance.
I owe you a big thank you. I'm always wrestling with terminology and definitions. I think this audience knows that when I have guests on, routinely I will ask them to back up and define what they mean, define what we're talking about. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, right? Because so many of us have different viewpoints, different POVs when it comes to certain topics. And so I always want to make sure that I'm on the same page with the guest about how they define whatever the subject is at hand. There's some words, though, in our lexicon, in the English language, that are just hard to define. Love being one of them, right? Love is one of those words. Trust is one of those words. I mean, I was just thinking as you were talking, literally in the last 48 hours, I had somebody ask me, Tavis, do you trust me? I had to pause for a second. I had to take a beat because I'm like, okay, how am I defining trust in this instance? Or how are they defining trust? Yeah. Do I trust you? So here comes a very healthy, usable definition. I say all the time when I have smart folk on the program like you who are clearly learned, that's nice, but do you have a usable intellect? Can I use the intellect that you have? And that's a good definition. Trust, the mechanism that absorbs our uncertainty, the mechanism that absorbs our uncertainty. I'll be noodling on that the rest of the day, so thank you for that, Dr. Marcus Collins.
My pleasure.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you if there's any research, any data on how long it takes we the people. Speaking of WeChat in China, how long it takes us to grab hold of new terminology. So, again, as I said earlier, the people started calling Federal Express FedEx, and they caught on and changed the name of their company. So Facebook is gone to Meta. Twitter is now X. How long before we literally forget that it ever was Twitter and start calling it X? I ask that because as I sit in the studio right now here in Leimert Park, we are adjacent to a street called Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. Talk to anybody who's been around here for a while, and they'll still slip up sometimes and call it Santa Barbara. It used to be Santa Barbara until they changed it to MLK. Anybody of a certain age in Los Angeles will slip up every now and then and still refer to it as Santa Barbara. All these years later, some people at least still don't call it what it really is. How long then for us to start calling Twitter X to the extent we ever do?
The literature isn't very exact about the time frame because it's so heterogeneous, it's so widely varied.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do know are the mechanisms that get us there. We know the forces that lead to adoption and ultimately propagation. And these forces are referred to as evaluation and legitimation.
Mm-hmm.
And they happen at the same time. So evaluation is the process by which we decide we evaluate whether it's cool or not, right? We give it value.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it cool or is it whack? Is it smart or is it stupid? Is it something that people like us do,
mm-hmm.
right? And then which leads to legitimation. And that's the social process by which we decide what's acceptable behavior for people like us. So something may not be considered high in evaluation, but we still do it.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, someone may say, "Oh, the reality television is a brain drain. It's lowbrow," but we still watch it,
mm-hmm.
right? So even though it's not considered in high stature, we still adopt the behavior. And it's when legitimation takes place that we decide that people like us do something like this, and it begins to propagate within the population.
Yeah.
And that process by which things are adopted, this is how culture evolves. This is how culture changes. So we don't have the time frame in which it happens, but what we know is that the more people do it, the faster adopted it becomes.
Yeah.
Because culture moves forward on the basis of one simple question. Do people like me do something like this? The answer is yes, I do it. The answer is no, I don't. And the more the people slip up and still call it Santa Barbara as opposed to MLK,
mm-hmm.
the more people will continue to slip up and call it Santa Barbara as opposed to MLK. Mm-hmm. But the more that we adopt it and call it MLK and go, no, you mean MLK, not Santa Barbara,
mm-hmm.
the more we do that, the faster it becomes adopted.
Yes.
So it really depends on the people and how fast this thing propagates into the population.
Yep. Let me see if we can answer this next question in like 90 seconds, and we can continue on the other side if we need to, not a problem. But for all of the rancor that Elon Musk has caused, not just with his purchase of Twitter, but just overall, his politics, which I won't get into right about now, he didn't become a billionaire by being stupid. Let's be clear about that. So I wonder, for all the critique of Twitter now being known as X, whether or not Elon Musk is just outsmarting all of us with his attempt to become the WeChat of this country. Is he crazy like a fox?
Well, I do think he is quite clever, and he's had receipts to evidence this with SpaceX as
Sure.
well as Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
But in those contexts, he has been the dictator deciding. But we talk about social phenomenon, talk about platforms where there are communities. You don't dictate to the community. The community is a part of that process, and that, I think, is a new phenomenon for him.
When we come forward with our guest, Dr. Marcus Collins, we'll talk straight away about Threads. It is the new platform that people are talking about, and it is the most credible threat that I have seen, that others have seen to date at least, when it comes to Twitter. If you're sick of Elon Musk and his politics and beyond, if you've signed off on Twitter, as many people have, Threads is the most legitimate option that I've seen as a threat to Twitter, now known as X. We'll talk about that and a great deal more. Dr. Collins' book is called For the Culture, The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be. And you're listening to Marcus Collins right now on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Jacksonville, Florida, a Duval County School Board member wants to see changes to the state's new Black History curriculum. African-American Darrell Willey said yesterday that he has reviewed the entire 200-plus pages of the new guidelines. He and other critics object to one part of the curriculum that teaches that slaves learned skills that helped them when they gained their freedom, but Willey says there are other problems. New data shows COVID-19 making a comeback. The CDC says COVID hospitalizations have risen by more than 10% across the country. Their latest report shows over 7,100 COVID-19 patients were admitted in the week of July 15th. It's the largest percent increase in COVID hospitalizations since December. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
There's a brand new crash on the Foothill Freeway in Pasadena. A utility truck and a car mixed it up on the 210 eastbound before Lake Street. The right lane is blocked. Similar for the Riverside Freeway in Buena Park, 91 eastbound before Valley View Street. Two-car crash has taken out the two right lanes. You're backed up to Artesia Boulevard. And looking at Long Beach on the Long Beach Freeway, 710 southbound of Pacific Coast Highway, a car and a big rig smacked together on the right shoulder.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The latest on LeBron James' son, Bronny. He remains in stable condition at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center after suffering a cardiac arrest on Monday. LA Fire Department paramedics were called to the Galen Center on the USC campus when Bronny lost consciousness. Big props to the USC medical staff on site and the paramedics for their quick response. When a person is having a cardiac arrest, their heart stops or has an irregular heartbeat and blood flow to the brain, lungs, and other vital organs is interrupted. It's a serious medical incident that requires immediate care. Heart specialists monitoring news coverage of Bronny's situation say it's a positive sign that he made enough improvement to be removed from the intensive care unit. Bronny was taken out of ICU a few hours after arriving at Cedars-Sinai. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead community development and national partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So, Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership, it's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community, and it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Maisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
I'm Dominique DePrima. We can all fall into the trap of mindlessly spending sometimes. I know I do it. But one tip for staying on track is when you have an impromptu purchase that comes up, try making a habit of taking a quick look at your bank account balance before you buy it. It's not just about seeing how much you have in your checking account. Just looking at your account might put the urge to make that impulse purchase into perspective and help you make better choices that'll benefit you for the long term. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Contracts, and grants. This is Rambo, and I'm back August 5th. Contracts, and grants. I'll be at the Westin Hotel, LAX, Saturday, August 5th. Me and my guests are fast-paced in the contracts and grants. They only speak 6 minutes each. I have LA County, I have the city, I even have Everett, the CEO of Lindustry, coming to talk to you guys. And for the first time ever, I have Metro's Director of Certification coming. We average over 700 attendees, so you know the rules. Parking's about $15 with the event validation, event, coffee, snacks, all free, paid for by Rambo know a industry, and yes, you can bring guests. So save your seat, DeonRambo.com. Listen, contract ready's only 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12, but if you get there around 9:30, I'll probably be doing some Q&As and things like that before the events I never get a chance to do. I honestly keep saying, I don't know what's more important for LA businesses right now than local contracts. So I'm back, Westin Hotel, LAX, Saturday, August 5th. August 5th. It takes 2 minutes to register. DeonRambo.com. Go register now. DeonRambo.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Marcus Collins. His book is called For the Culture, The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be. We are having this conversation with Dr. Collins in part because, not just because the book is out, but in part because, that's a good enough reason, but also because Elon Musk has made some news. As you know, he's being disruptive once again. This time, changing the name of Twitter to X. In case you've just tuned in, that iconic blue and white bird logo that we've all come to know has now been replaced with a minimalistic black and white X. And from now on, the platform formerly known as I feel like I'm about to refer to Prince now. The artist formerly known as Prince. The platform formerly known as Twitter would now and forever be known as X. And so we are talking in this hour about again whether or not these moves tend to work, whether or not they make a difference, and whether or not we end up buying in when Facebook goes to Meta and Twitter goes to X. And so Dr. Marcus Collins is the right expert to be talking to about all those things in this hour. And I haven't gotten yet to black spending power. We'll get to that a little bit later in this conversation. But as I promised, let me go straight to this notion of threads now. And I if I heard you correctly, you see threads as a credible threat, my phrase, not yours, to Twitter or X. Tell me if I'm right about that, and if so, why I'm right about that.
Sure. I think that Threads is probably the first text-based app that is closest in parity to the functionality and value proposition of Twitter. But more importantly, what Threads has done, where other platforms have tried to rival Twitter has failed in the past, is that Threads allows you to take all of your followers, all your connections on Instagram, and bring them over to Threads with you. Mm-hmm. So it's not a party that you show up to where you don't know anybody. It's a party you show up to and all your friends are there. And you're like, oh, man, look at this new space. Like, wow. Like, and because of the algorithm of Instagram, there are many people that you follow on Instagram who follow you that you don't see in your news feed just because of how the algorithm is designed. However, with Threads, much like Twitter, it's an ongoing news feed, a timeline where you're seeing everything from everybody, and you get to like bump into people you haven't talked to in forever or heard from in forever. So those network effects makes Threads a much more valuable platform than just another entrant. And there have been like Mastodon's another one who's tried to battle against Twitter, but this one is particularly interesting because of the network effects. What would normally keep someone from leaving one platform to go to another is that I don't want to leave the social capital that I've built here. That social capital is coming along with you from another platform where you know that there's more activity and a greater population of people.
Mm-hmm. How do you regard what Elon Musk has done or not done, said or not said, as it were, when it comes to the hate that is Twitter, that is X so much these days?
I think Elon Musk is he's signaled where he stands with regards to his outlook on the world, his social outlook, call it his political affiliations. Mm-hmm. I think that him saying that he's prioritizing free speech is a dog whistle for hate. I think the fact that he offered to reinstate Donald Trump is another on the platform is another example to signals not only his political affiliations. I think that's just an outward expression of an inward belief, and his inward belief it has very little to do with the advancement of people of color, of marginalized communities. And the way that he's run Twitter since he's gotten on Twitter, the fact that he hasn't come to the defense of people who are experiencing verbal violence with regards to the use of the N-word, anti-Semitism, and the like, says a lot about where he sits with regards to these social phenomena, and one could only venture that this is going to be his point of view going forward. I mean, even as we see people who are becoming more and more invested in this new Twitter that he's created, known as X. I mean, they're far right-leaning folks, and everything about their ideology seems to be in the way of oppressing our marginalized groups of people, which I think is problematic.
Mm. For those, again, who may have just tuned in, let me ask you to reprise briefly what WeChat does in China. I've been to China a few times. I know a bit about the way this service works. But just reprise right quick what WeChat has accomplished successfully in China, and tell us how successful then you think in the long term Elon Musk can do turning X into the WeChat of America.
Yeah, so WeChat is essentially an amalgamation of many, many, many different apps. So if you open up your iPhone or your Galaxy or your Pixel and you look at all those apps you have your banking app, you have your Grubhub or you have your Uber app, you have your Instagram app, you have your PayPal, all these different things you do, all these different things you do across the social web all exists inside of one app. WeChat. You never leave the app. You book an appointment to get your hair done on the app. You deposit your check into your checking account on the app. You follow a band that you like on the app. You do everything on the app. You buy a new pair of sneakers on the app. Everything happens on the app, and that is the dominant app in China. Now, of course, the municipalities of China are far different than they are here. Like, your data is not yours in China, right? Like, and not to speak disparaging, but that's just how it is. There is no Facebook, there is no Twitter, there is no Instagram, there is no YouTube in China because of the legalities and municipalities of China. So a WeChat-like object makes a lot of sense there because of the social norms in place there. Those norms don't exist here. The closest to WeChat that we've had is Facebook, and Facebook has gone so much fire that they changed their name to Meta. We've seen this playbook kind of play out before, but interestingly, the difference between Meta's change from Facebook to Meta is that they never changed the consumer-facing product name. They only changed the corporation level.
Sure.
So though Meta is no longer Facebook, it's Meta, that's not who you bump into every day. You still have your Facebook app and your Instagram app and your WhatsApp app. Google the same way. Google changed its company name to Alphabet, but the consumer-facing name is still Google, maintaining all the identifiability that gives equity to the brand, but also instilling the same trust that we've had in the brand because the meaning is still the same. But this change from Twitter to X, it compromises all of that. Right, the identifier is not just at the corporate level; it's the thing that we actually engage with on a regular basis. If you decide to stay on the app,
so can he be successful, even marginally, at turning X into a WeChat, a version of WeChat?
I think it requires a lot of variables to change. It requires the disposition of the American culture and our trust in big tech corporations. It requires a massive change there. It requires a change in how he operates as a leader, both being the face of Twitter at the moment, even though they have a new CEO, but being head of X Ventures, under which Twitter sits. It requires a massive change in him such that we see him differently. And then, of course, the product has to change. I mean, right now, again, it's only a veneer change. Like, it's still, if you go to the Twitter page or Twitter handle on Twitter or on X, now it still has a Twitter URL. Like, it's still very much, putting lipstick on a pig. But until the pig changes, whatever cosmetic things we do to it isn't going to be enough for its meaning to shift in our minds.
I could have commenced our conversation with this question. When we come forward, I want to come right to it, and that is the notion of changing Twitter to X. I'm thinking of all the ways. I mean, the letter X is ubiquitous. You think of all the ways that letter X has been used in marketing and promotion. You think of course, Spike Lee, Malcolm X, and just the way he used that letter X on his posters and on hats. That simple letter has had such a profound impact when it comes to marketing in our country. The fact that Elon Musk chose X as the new logo, as the new name for Twitter is fascinating to me. I want to probe Marcus Collins's viewpoint on that, and then we'll get to what black folk have to say about this and the spending power of black people to make or break markets, never mind how they want to rebrand them. Talk about that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
In our community, mental health struggles can sometimes go unnoticed. The suicide rate among Black youth has risen faster than any other ethnic group. Only 1 in 3 African Americans who need mental health care receives it. African American women are only half as likely as their Caucasian counterparts to seek professional mental health services. Even those who guide us spiritually can sometimes face their own challenges. 45% of pastors say they've experienced depression or burnout to the extent they need to take a leave of absence from ministry. As people of faith, it's time to acknowledge it's okay not to be okay. You can pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources. Join us in raising mental health awareness in our community. Funded by the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health and the Champion Counseling Center of Faithful Central Bible Church.
To my hometown, my community. Some of you have known me my whole life. Do you notice anything different about the kids in the neighborhood? Ever paid attention? We might start with gifts, money, attention. These are signs. Child trafficking is happening right here in this town. So don't just watch through the window. Pay attention. Because the more we know, the more we'll all know to say no. Learn the signs to look for and how to help at no-to-say-no.com.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Dr. Marcus Collins on Tavis Smiley. His new book is called For the Culture, The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be. The X, that simple but poignant symbol has meant so much in our culture. What do you make of his decision, Elon Musk's decision, to use X as his logo and as his name, Dr. Collins?
Well, I think it makes sense for the context in which Elon Musk operates. He's a scientist, right? And therefore, engineer, the meaning of X being the unknown, being a variable, makes a lot of sense because he explores the unknown, whether it's electric vehicles, whether it's putting rockets and things in space with SpaceX, and perhaps Twitter. I mean, for good or for bad, like we don't know what the thing is going to be. So there's a lot of unknown there. So call it X actually seems somewhat apropos because he himself is a bit of an unknown. But to your earlier point, X has a lot of different meanings. Mm-hmm. Malcolm X used X as a way to signaling his unknown roots, and therefore the name given to him little is not representative of who he is. When we think about pirates, just use an X as a way of saying X marks the spot. Mm-hmm. Years ago, the press decided they weren't going to run photos of dead bodies, so they'd use an X as a way of demarcating death. We also use X's as a way of seeing a kiss, like X's and O's. Mm-hmm. Right? X has a lot of different meanings to it, tons of different meanings to it. But it's we, that is the community, people, society, we decide what it means. And as much as one may signal meaning, it's us who decides whether it means those things or not. For instance, if I say what is red, one would say it's a color or maybe a wavelength that helps us see a color red. But if you're going down an intersection and you see a red light, red means stop. Now, does red inherently mean stop? No. We have negotiated and constructed that red means stop. The same thing goes with all things that are symbolic in nature. We collectively decide what it means. And because of what it means, we adopt it, depending on who we are and what people like us do. So Elon Musk may have ambitions for what he wants to signal with X. And I think considering what we know of his previous experiences, X is the variable of the unknown. But what it would actually mean in the context of what Twitter once was, I think still remains to be seen.
When we come forward now, final moments with Dr. Marcus Collins, two issues I want to raise with him. One, again, the issue of black spending power and what we have to say when product producers make these attempts, at least, at rebranding. What black folk have to say makes a huge difference given the power that we wield in the marketplace. And finally, I want to go back to his book title, For the Culture, the Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be, and ask what who we want to be has to do with what we buy and what we do. You're listening to Dr. Marcus Collins on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands for Unity and Healing. African Focus Incorporated is a nonprofit organization based in California that focuses on the growth and well-being of Africans all around the world. Their mission is to promote the well-being of people of African descent through knowledge and appreciation of one another by building a bridge of love and understanding. African Focus Incorporated strives for cultural, educational, and economic growth. They're the organization behind the African Family Induction Ceremony, African Goodwill Awards, African Focus Trailblazer Tours, African Dance Competition, and Showcase Los Angeles, Family Day, Good News Windows Microfinance Project, and more. To volunteer, travel with African Focus, or to attend one of their community building events, please call 310-676-7730. That's 310-676-7300. Or visit AfricanFocus.org. This is a diaspora-wide community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is here with the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about our full regimen of products.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
What make you? Yeah.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Before I get to these last two issues, I want to raise to Dr. Marcus Collins. Dr. Collins, it won't surprise you, I hope at least. I have some really, really smart listeners, and somebody sent me this, and I want to read it to you because we were talking about X, and you powerfully unpacked the different ways in which X, that symbol, has been used historically in our country. But listen to this. During the 18th, again, a listener sent me this. During the 18th and 19th centuries, North American Indian leaders commonly signed treaties with the European powers and the American and Canadian governments with an X, signifying their presence and assent to the terms. These X marks indicated coercion because the treaties were made under unfair conditions, resistance because they were often met with protest, and acquiescence to both a European modernity and the end of a particular moment of Indian history and identity. So there's another example yet of the way the letter X has been used by our Native American brothers and sisters who signed it because they had to, but they signed it under protest, and all they used was an X.
I mean, I love that. I love that. I mean, because what it gets to your point, is that these are all signifiers. And signifying is meaning. It's a meaning that we construct, and meaning is culturally mediated, right? So the way in which we use that symbol X depends on who we are and how we see the world, and all the many ways by which we refashion it and recontextualize it based on how we navigate the world.
Yep. We got 3 minutes. Let's do two things in 3 minutes. That's a minute and a half, or however you want to break it up. First, talk to me about the power of black people and their spending when it comes to companies who try to rebrand to get our attention in the marketplace.
I mean, black people, we are the best customers you could ever have because we buy even though people don't talk to us. We buy even though people don't make products for us. That we take things that are outside of sort of what's meant for us, and we refashion them to make them cool. And we know that that innovation comes from marginalized communities because we have less, and therefore we have to make more with the little bit that we have. So when we get a product, when we get a brand, we give it new meaning, i.e. Dapper Dan, i.e. all the things that we buy, we make them cool. And the coolness that we provide to these products, they give it credence that allow it to be sold to people outside of our community, which I think is both a gift and a curse.
Yeah, black folk have the power. I think we both agree to make or break companies when it comes to our spending. My exit question then in the 90 seconds I have left is simply this: that book title, For the Culture: The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be. What does who we want to be have to do with what we buy and what we do, or vice versa? You tell me.
Because we buy things not because of what they are, but because of who we are. Or said differently, we buy things to make our culture material. What is culture? Culture is a system of conventions and expectations that demarcate who we are and what people like us do. But if you ask 5 people to define culture, you get 50 different answers, right? So we don't have good language. As you said at the top of our time, we don't have a good Rosetta Stone for this word. Therefore, we never really have the ability to operationalize with any sustainability or any consistency, right? So the things that we buy are ways by which we signal to the world who we are so that we find community with people like us, right? I would go as far as to say that consumption is a cultural act. What we wear, where we go, what we drive, how we vacation, where we go to school, if you go to school, who you marry, if you marry, where you bury the dead, if you bury the dead. All these things are byproducts of our cultural subscription. And therefore, we buy things not because of what they are, but because of who we are, or rather, who we really want to be.
There you go, dropping jewels again, or dropping bars, as they say. He started with trust is the mechanism that absorbs our uncertainty, and he closes with consumption is, in fact, a cultural act. He's a bad boy. His name is Dr. Marcus Collins. His book is called For the Culture: The Power Behind What We Buy, What We Do, and Who We Want to Be. What a rich, richer than rich conversation this has been. And Dr. Marcus Collins, I thank you for it, sir. All the best to you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Jacksonville, Florida, a Duval County School Board member wants to see changes to the state's new Black History curriculum. African-American Darrell Willey said yesterday that he has reviewed the entire 200-plus pages of the new guidelines. He and other critics object to one part of